Hey dreamers, so this is a very important video and I have been sitting on this one for a while. I get a lot of DMs, emails and comments from people who really need help and really need somebody to listen to them. Whether your problem is anxiety, self-harm, suicidal thoughts, living with a chronic illness, or a few people who are in secondary homelessness, which means not homeless on the street but close to it, maybe living on a couch or a refuge, halfway home, something like that. So I know that my channel and myself as a person attracts a lot of people that need healing and need care. So that's what this video is here for. I delayed making this video not because I didn't want to help, but because I channel and use my intuition to give you the best, most helpful message possible. And there were a lot of good things I could say from my life experience because I've been through a lot and I've lived a big life. And I've also spent almost 2 years reading tarot cards for people for free. And during that time, I spoke to hundreds and hundreds of people that I gave really good advice to. And that experience taught me a lot about what people want and what people need, as well as my own life experience. So I feel that I'm at a point where I can give you all something that could possibly help quite a fair bit. So I'm going to cover a few topics. The first one being self-harm. Now the reason I'm going to start there is because if you're self-harming, or if you know someone who is self-harming, you're going to be in the most need. Besides being homeless, being homeless, wanting to die, wanting to hurt yourself, or being in a very severe illness, these are the critical conditions of life. So I'm going to start there, and then we're going to move on to the topic of anxiety and depression. Now, if you're self-harming, whether that be cutting yourself, starving yourself, anorexia, some kind of addiction, some way where you're really, really hurting yourself. But I'm going to use cutting yourself as an example. A lot of people think that just has to do with being depressed. Well, it does, but there are a lot of depressed people that don't cut themselves. So why the self-harm? Well, because of a few factors. But one of the main reasons that you need to know in regards to yourself or someone that you're helping who hurts themselves is that when somebody is doing that, they need love and they need help. They don't need to be shamed or judged or ridiculed. If you think that people do that just for attention, well, you're both right and wrong, because it's not the kind of attention that the media and stigma in society makes it out to be. It's not attention like, look at me, look at me, look at me. Aren't I so beautiful, smart, great, pay attention to me. It's not like that. But it is coming from a deep place of needing to be heard, needing to be loved, and needed to be listened to. Now, if you've listened to someone with depression or self-harm, you may think, well, I've already listened to them. Lots of people listen to them. They have a therapist, they have a family, they have friends. Why are they doing this? So you need to understand that there's a big difference between listening with your ears and listening with your heart. There's a difference between listening with your ears and listening with your heart, and listening with your actions and your change of actions. So if someone's hurting themselves and they've got someone quietly listening to them, but they're not really listening with empathy, with love, with true understanding, deep within the heart to heart, they're still going to not feel listened to. So if you do that with judgment, and you do that with scorn, and you do that with disdain for the person who is harming themselves, then you are not truly listening, and they have not truly been listened to. So that's one of the biggest distinctions that's out there, is a lot of these people may have a therapist or a psychologist. But when you have to pay somebody to listen to you, when the very people in your life that you need to listen to you the most ain't listening, well, that just isn't going to feel very good at all. And that can sometimes make the problem worse, because you're talking and talking and talking about the problem. You're screaming about the problem. You're cutting about the problem. You're drowning in the problem. But no one is truly listening. So when I read these comments and these emails, I can't come and solve your life. I can't rescue you. I don't have a lot of money. I'm disabled. I'm a disabled person with a physical disability. I also struggle with complex PTSD. So I can't personally come in and rescue you. But what I do have here is I try my best to be kind and empathetic and listen. And if I can think of anything, or if I can direct you anywhere, I'll try. But when you're doing this, you need to know that there's nothing wrong with you. Your emotions are not wrong. Sadness is not wrong. Anger is not wrong. Feeling the way you do is not wrong. You're not wrong. You're not defective. You're not crazy. You're not insane. You're a hurt person hurting. Hurt people hurt. Hurt people hurt themselves. Sometimes, if they don't have the right sense of right and wrong and morals, they hurt others. Hurt people hurt people. Now, a lot of the time, people who hurt themselves, they might even have a lot of anger at the people who are not listening to them. But because they're good and kind people, instead of hurting the other person, they hurt themselves. They turn that hurt in onto themselves. So sadly, a lot of the people at fault in the situation, the people who are not listening, the people who are lacking empathy, the people who are contributing to the situation, they're the ones in positions of power. They're the ones not doing what they need to do. And the person who is self-harming is the one that society is viewing as crazy, wrong, unwanted. So a great injustice happens to people who need our help the most. They are already feeling unlistened to, unwanted, and when they do things such as self-harm or wind up in a situation where, due to abuse or some kind of tragedy, they're in a position where they're in great need of being homeless or wanting not to be in this world anymore. And that is the time when society can be very cruel and push them away further. See, we have this copy-paste rhetoric. Whenever somebody needs help, we're trained. You see it on Twitter, Facebook, social media, friend circles. When someone needs help, what do we tell them? Get help. When someone needs help, what do we tell them? Get help. When someone says that they're feeling suicidal and sad, and that they're lonely, and that they want to be part of the community, that they need their family and friends to listen to them, that they need more time, more hugs, more love, what do we do with these people? We give them pills. We put them in hospitals. We push them away. And we tell them, love you lots, praying for you, best wishes, kissy, 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 go get help. Go get help. Go get help. So where are we supposing that this magical help comes from? If we are not, are we not a part of the community? Are we all not helpers helping each other in this life? You see, the saddest thing is that a lot of the time, the people who help are hurting. The people who do help are the wounded healers. There's a concept of the wounded healer. A shaman once told me that I am a wounded healer, and that is something that has been very true in my life. There's a lot of people that get benefit from my card reads, from my videos, from my podcasts, from my writing and conversations. But I myself have been suicidal and so ill physically that I couldn't get out of my bed or my house. And there was usually the times where I was sitting there helping other people. And a lot of the people who have helped me in my life have been disabled or depressed or really poor. And the people that are doing well for themselves, not always, but usually, they think that they're too good to help. They don't want to be involved. They're too busy. They don't have the time. That's the cruelest irony, is the people that roll up their sleeves to help others are the ones that need the help the most themselves. So if we want that to change in society, we need to speak strong on these issues. We need to be there for each other. We need to be there for each other. And we need to get rid of this copy-paste, lazy, unkind, unfeeling, disinterested rhetoric where we tell the person bleeding out, get help, get help. Not everyone can pay for help, and even if they can afford it or get some kind of plan for help, not everybody gets the kind of help they need from some kind of person with a clipboard. If that works for you, if you have a loving and caring therapist or psychologist, by all means continue to go and do the good work with them. But why I say this is just, it is too much of an assumption, usually an incorrect assumption, that if we fob these people off and tell them to take a pill, tell them to get help, that they will magically get help. When it takes a community to heal friends, family, people who don't have professional boundaries and contracts where they can't hold us, they can't put their heart on our heart, they can't cry, and they can't show us the love and the care that we really need in those moments. But I may not be personally there with you right now, but my goodness, do I care. And I'm tearing up right now. You know, I hope that you can feel the care that is in my voice and that is in my heart, because your feelings are valid. And if you've felt that screaming into the abyss pain where you've been fobbed off to a helpline, or you've been fobbed off and fobbed off and fobbed off, or told you're an attention seeker, told that you're not a good person because you're harming yourself in some way, I want you to know that that's not true. And you do deserve help, and you do need to get help, but not that kind of help alone. And sometimes, even if you can't get that help, some people have toxic families, absent friends, situations of isolation. Sometimes just hearing something like this, or somebody telling you that you're right, that you are heard, that you matter, that you are valid, and that all those toxic people around you telling you to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, take a pill, numb yourself, ring some line, talk to some rando on the suicide hotline. I've rung those suicide hotlines. I've had to ring them in my life. And some of the people that are on those hotlines, I'm glad that it was brought up on Twitter. I used to have a Twitter, I don't use it. So many people were commenting underneath a post that a woman made. It was perfect. And she was saying, you know what? We tell people to call those hotlines. Do we even know what those hotlines are like? I've rung those hotlines. I had a woman who laughed at me for feeling suicidal on that hotline. There are some emotionally abusive people working in the mental health section. There are sadly many cases of nurses who abuse, who take advantage, bad therapy, horror stories. People on those hotlines, there's a lot of kind, compassionate ones, but there's also ones you could ring one. And in my case, I've rung twice, and in both cases, I struck someone who made me feel worse. The only time that I felt help was through either a video like this or a friend. And the last time I felt like that, one of my friends that actually watches my videos, he talked to me, and talking to him helped me through that hard time. Having a friend listen to me and care, and feeling that love from a person, not a real person. Now, they did this online. They did this for me online. So sometimes even just having that from an online friend, that can mean the world. So you can be that online friend for someone, and you can find those online friends. There are forums, there are places you can go. But you are not alone. Even if you can't get that hug or that holding, there are places, there's online, there's these videos, there's places where there's a loving community. But it's also very important for you to know that your feelings of anger, that loving community isn't in your family, that isn't in your town, that isn't in your life, and that they aren't there for you and they're not helping. That anger is valid. That stinks, and that is shit. Come on, let's say it. That stinks and that's shit. Let's be angry. Your anger is valid. Sometimes the best way to get out of depression is to allow yourself to feel it, allow yourself to cry, allow yourself to be angry, allow yourself to be angry of these injustices that you're experiencing. It is an unjust situation. You weren't expecting me to say this when you started the video, were you? But that's because I feel that what people need most a lot of the time is to be heard, to be empathized with, and validation. By all means, continue to do what helps. If you take medicine or a pill and that helps you, take it. If you have a friend that helps you, if you have a therapist that helps you, continue to do what works. But at the same time, know that if these are being methods that have been used to fob you off in your hour of need, pat you on the head, hand you a tablet, expect you to feel better, that's wrong. That is wrong, and that's lazy. But we live in a society where people don't want to look these things in the eye. So we all convince each other that that's the way that we deal with the mentally ill. That's the way we deal with the homeless, and that's the way we deal with the cutters. We tell them they're wrong. We tell them they're crazy. We tell them to go away. Call someone else, bother someone else, because the truth is they don't want to deal with it. But we need to deal with it. We need to be bothered. We need to take on some of the burdens of our friends in need and our family in need. We need to share these things because we are humans and we are a community. Who are these magical people that they keep fobbing them off to? Get help, get help. They are. They're asking you, get help. Get help, get help. They're asking you for help. That's why they're there. And if you can't help, then admit that you can't. And try to send them elsewhere. Like, I can't always help, and I'll admit that. If you leave a comment or a message and I have part of my illness is chronic fatigue, I can't answer it all, or I can't be there for a lot of it. But I don't deny that. And I'm not going to, metaphorically pat you on the head and say that this is your fault, that I couldn't help you. It's just what it is. But if you're in the position to help someone, help them. If you can help somebody, help them. And if you can't, admit that you can't. Admit that you can't. But don't blame the person in need. Don't blame them. Don't shame them. We gotta be honest. We've really got to get honest with this stuff. We lack so much authenticity and honesty around these topics. So what do you do if you're in this situation yourself? You need to try to, if you've got someone and they're listening to you, but you walk away feeling worse, you need to really question if they're truly listening to you. And what you need to do is don't waste your energy on people who aren't listening. If they're just listening with their ears and they're not listening with their heart, you need to move on, find better friends and find better people. And get people that will listen to you with their heart. And if you can't find that, try and find that online. And in the very worst case scenario that you can't find that in person and you can't find that online, but I have not seen that happen. I mean, I think that if you really put yourself out there, people will share back. I've done it in my posts. but it does happen, you know, if you can't find that even online. Then when I've had situations where I've been so broke that I couldn't even afford an internet connection, that I was in secondary homelessness. That's why I can do what I do, because I've been through a lot of things that people are going through. When I was in those situations, all I had to talk to were my angels, a sense of spirituality. And if you're not spiritual, well, then I also had my plush toys. And I remember sitting my plush toys up in the chair and pouring my heart out to them. And knowing that you may not always be able to see your helpers, but they're there, and that love is there, and that energy is listening, and there's angels and guides, they're listening, they hear you, I hear you. So that may not be the best ideal situation, but a lot of people want to pretend like, oh, there's a tablet, there's a therapist, there's a hotline. Sometimes those don't always work. So that's why I want to mention the plush toys. That's why I want to mention the angels. That's why I want to mention the online friends, because when you're really in those dire situations, a lot of the prescribed remedies are not always there, and they're not always perfect. So sometimes your best empathetic friend is yourself. So if you're listening and you're despairing because you're like, well, there's no one who listens to me properly, then you need to love you and listen to you, because I've had to do this for me, and it's the hardest thing. And I'm not going to sit there and act like it isn't lonely. And I'm not going to sit there and act like that wasn't devastating, that there are moments in my life where I didn't even have an online friend. I didn't even have this kind of video. I didn't have anything. Just some toys, some angels, just a sense of hope that maybe someone out there is listening. But sometimes you got to be your own best friend and take your own problems seriously. Give yourself dignity. Know that sometimes if you're bleeding out in front of these people and they don't care, give yourself more dignity, give yourself more love. Listen to yourself. Even if you've got 10 people telling you that they don't care and that you're crazy and we don't have time for you, and go and call these magical numbers that don't really exist. Go take these magical pills that give you lots of side effects that don't make you feel good at the end of the day. Go away, leave us alone. Then you know who your best and most reliable friend is? Yourself. Yourself. So you're never truly alone if you have a good relationship with yourself. So I want you to try and look at yourself from the perspective, from an outside perspective. If you saw another girl, boy, woman, man, or anything else, any other type of human, you're a human, and they were cutting themselves or drinking themselves to death, or crying, hurting, struggling, stuck in cycles in life, your heart would care. You would care. You would cry. You would care. You would definitely care. If somebody else was in your situation and you saw someone else in your situation, you would care. So give that same care that you would give for someone else to yourself and be your own best friend. Don't tell yourself nasty things. Oh, you're pathetic, you're worthless, no one cares about you, because it's wrong. You care about you. I care about you. If you have no one else and you need to tell yourself, Staria cares about me, and that helps you, do it, because I do. I care about people who are hurting, and I care about you. And hopefully you can get to a point where you care about you too, no matter what anybody else says. Love yourself. Love yourself is the key. Love yourself, and the more you love yourself, the more, that's how I got out of it. The more you validate, the more you get angry, the more you know that your situation isn't right and that you are right and your feelings are real and you're not an attention seeker. If you're seeking attention, it's because you need it. It's because you have been left for so long without real listening that you've resorted to something so desperate as to cut your own flesh. Don't hate yourself for that. Forgive yourself. Love yourself. If you have been so traumatized, so abandoned in your life that you needed to do these desperate means, then the last thing that you need is shame and hatred and judgment on your head. You need love. Love yourself. If no one gives that to you, you give that to you. I give that to you right now. I love you as a human being. So, just remember that if you see someone in that position too. Sometimes just talking to them about their interests like video games, toys, anime, sometimes just having a friend, like you don't always have to sit down and go, oh, so why are you cutting yourself? Sometimes just being a friend and making them feel human and normal and loved and included. One of the biggest causes of depression is exclusion and trauma and feeling left out of the group. So include them. If you're depressed and you don't want to talk about depressing topics, then you can still interact with your depressed friend. You know, you may not have the capability to give the best advice or to help them with their family situation, but what you can do is you can chat to them about video games. You can talk to them about their cat or their dog or whatever they like. You can have fun. You can help, raise their vibration, have fun, sing, dance, be there for them. It won't get to the heart of the matter, but it will help. It will help. It really will. Giving them a sense of fulfillment and connection is some of the best gift that you could give somebody. Now on to the homeless. A lot of people want to fob them off too. I see it all the time. We have ideas in our head that they're lazy, they're on drugs, they're bad people. A lot of those things are myths. A lot of people that have become homeless, and I've known some of them, their landlord raised the rent. They have a disability. They have mental health problems. There's many ways that somebody could be homeless. They could have lost their home in a natural disaster. They could have a toxic and abusive family and nowhere to go and nowhere to stay. A lot of homeless women are women that are escaping domestic violence because there isn't enough women's shelters out there. They're overflowing. So a lot of these people who have mental health, who have violence, who have issues where they need love, help, support, they end up homeless. Do you know the majority of homeless people have come from these situations? When I have the time and I'm not in a rush, and I see a homeless person, I spent a lot of my life sitting down and talking with them. And the thing that a lot of them had in common broke my heart. A lot of these people were foster kids. Do you hear that? A lot of homeless people were foster children. Foster children. Foster children that either were orphaned or had abusive families. Now, no child deserves to be abused or hurt or abandoned or left without parents. And I spoke to one of them. They got passed around to so many foster homes, and then the foster homes were abusive to her as well. She was sexually abused and assaulted. All sorts of terrible things happened to this poor woman. So she ran out of the foster home, and then this young woman found herself homeless. Now, a lot of people walking by assumed that she was on drugs or a drunk or something negative towards her, but she was not. And a lot of these people, they are not. And actually, the ones that do drink or take drugs, they usually started after they became homeless as a way to cope with the pain and the stress and the misery of their situation. So we need to think twice about these people in society, the depressed, people who hurt, people who are addicted, people who are homeless. We need to think twice about them. There's so much judgment out there for the people who need the least amount of judgment. So when you walk by those homeless people, and if you ever judge them, you need to remind yourself, you don't know. They could have been a foster child. They could be an orphan. They could have experienced countless abuse that we could never even imagine. They could have lost their home in a fire or a hurricane. Or they could be suffering from some kind of addiction or mental health problem. So either be a solution or get out of their way. Be a solution or get out of the way. But do not judge them. Do not be cruel to them. And do not go talking to other people, spreading lies, saying the homeless must be lazy or they don't work or there's something wrong with them. Don't say that. Let's all help each other. All of us. No matter how small or big your problem is, if you have a little bit of anxiety to wanting to die just yesterday, and you're here listening to this, this is how we solve these problems, is by making a community for each other. We talk to the homeless people. We get them food. We protect them. If someone kicks their sign, if somebody kicks them, I've seen that. I've seen it where I was talking to a homeless man and someone came past and kicked the sign. We defend those people. We are on the side of good. How do you be on the side of good? You care about the homeless people. You care about the foster children. You care about yourself. You care about the people who hurt themselves. We don't judge them. We don't call them attention seekers. We don't put them down. We love them. We love those people. More love. The world needs more love. That's how we solve the problem. And we can make a community here in the comments. You comment down and other people can comment down, and you can talk to each other and you can reply to each other. Let's give love to each other. Let's make a loving community where no one is left behind. And if you've got the time, do not worry if everybody stares at you when you do this, because I did this and at first it bothered me and I got used to it and used to it and used to it. But when you first sit down, especially in the city, and there's a homeless person on the corner and you squat down and you start talking to them, yeah, people are going to walk past and stare at you. But we need to break these behaviors in society to change them. So squat down. Sit next to them. Especially if it's a young girl or a young person, they're most likely going to have had a bad family. I have never met one young person sitting on the side of the street that had a good, loving family. Squat down, sit next to them, ask them, how are you? Have you eaten today? Have you eaten today? Because some of them haven't even had anything to eat. Sometimes when you're depressed, the best way to feel better is to help someone else. Like when I was depressed, I spent a lot of time talking to homeless people, and it would make my day, because there was this beautiful guy, there was this lovely guy. He was so kind, he was good looking, he had everything going for him, and he just so happened to have, a terrible circumstance. And I went and bought him some food, and he cried, and it made his whole day because he hadn't eaten. I was speaking to him and his stomach was rumbling. There are beautiful people out there, and they just need help. So be a person that helps the other people. Be the person that helps yourself. That's all I have to say for now on those matters of self-harming, homelessness. There'll be more to say in future, but I feel that was what was needed to be said for now. When it comes to anxiety, there's a lot of people who wanted me to make a video on anxiety. There'll be more to be channeled and said about that. But what I do recommend is getting organic, because the sprayed kind doesn't work the same, and it just isn't the same. Get some organic chamomile tea. Organic chamomile tea. Lavender tea. I use a lot of herbal teas. Try to cut down on the coffee. Try to use some herbal teas. Sleep hygiene. Get yourself some good sleep. Exercise if you can, if you're not disabled. I'm aware of my disabled listeners. I have that. I can't always walk. I can't always exercise. But if you can walk and exercise, please just do. If you can't, even sit your wheelchair or your chair in the sun. Lack of vitamin D can cause anxiety as well. Get yourself some chamomile, organic chamomile. Cut out medications and coffees and caffeines that make your symptoms worse. Talk to your doctor, report your symptoms, let them know how things are affecting you. You have the right to have the control over what you put in your body. Okay? So don't be strong. Don't let other people dictate to you what you need, because you know you best. So if you're saying, look, this makes me feel sick, this gives me heart palpitations, This medicine is meant to help me with my depression, but it actually makes my anxiety worse. So it's just exchanging one thing for the other. You need to speak up for yourself and get help for that. You need to do that. You need to take power back into your life. Take power back, I believe, is one of the ways to help with the anxiety. Because when things are out of your hands and you feel like you don't have control, that can cause anxiety as well. So there's much more to say on anxiety. And the more I heal that area, I have healed my self-harm. I have healed any homelessness in myself, so I can talk on that matter. My anxiety is not fully healed, so that is all I can say on that matter for now. But I do believe in the power of natural products. So do try the chamomile tea. As the reason I've called dream tea for a reason, because I use a lot of dreaming teas and herbal teas to help me. All right, dreamers, so we're going to leave it there. There was a lot of topics covered. Love yourself, love other people, and know that you are valid, you matter. Let yourself get angry. Let yourself stick up for yourself. And know that this community of dreamers, we listen to each other. All right, guys, that's all.